Hello everybody, welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm cooking Hoisin duck with leek and cabbage. And I'm starting off with the leek and I'm just cutting it the part that I need, and then I'm washing it and cutting it into rings that are about a centimeter wide. Then I'm putting the leek off to one side and I'm taking care of the pointed cabbage. I'm eyeballing the amount that I'm taking. I'm only in the need of 175 grams. It doesn't matter if you have a bit more or a bit less. And I just take whatever I think my husband and I are able to eat quantity-wise. I'm also cutting the cabbage in rings first, and then I'm cutting those rings into strips. Again, I'm putting the vegetables off to one side and then I'm taking care of the orange. Now you could use a grater to peel the orange or to take the skin off, but this orange is very, very soft, so I would not have been able to grate it. That's why I'm using a peeler, and then I'm cutting the strips of orange peel with a knife and a mincing knife to have fairly small pieces in the end that I could add to the dish. It's very important that the orange is not waxed or has pesticides on the peel, and usually in the supermarket there's two different sorts of orange that you can buy, the quote-unquote normal ones that have pesticides and waxes on them, and then the ones that are organic. Please go for the organic one. Then it's time to head over to the stove, and I'm having two pans on my stove, a small one and a big one. I'm preparing the duck breasts here, drying them off a bit. I don't need to cut anything away because the breasts that I bought were ready to use. There was no excess that I had to cut away. If you have excess of fat on your duck breasts, cut that away before you put it in the pan. I'm putting the bigger pan on high heat, and once the pan is hot, I'm adding the duck with the skin down. No fat or anything added. The duck skin has enough fat. Into the smaller pan, which is also on high heat, I'm adding 3 tablespoons of sesame seeds. The recipe only requires 1 tablespoon, but my husband and I like sesame seeds a lot, so I always use more for garnish than it is set to be used in the recipe. I'm shaking the sesame seeds once in a while, and once they're starting to brown, I'm reducing the heat to low so that they don't burn. And once they are roasted, those seeds, I'm taking them off the stove of the heat. Meanwhile, the duck can fry in the pan. Again, it's very important to start with the skin side down, and I'm having it frying on both sides for about 5 minutes each. Depending on the size of the duck breast that you are using, you could easily adjust that time, and you only have to have it browned and crispy on both sides. That's the goal. So I don't want the fat all over my stove, so I'm using this sift here and some paper towels to prevent having the oils all over the place. But be very careful if you do that. When you lift off the paper towels and everything, there's a lot of hot steam underneath, so make sure that you don't burn yourself. Once the duck is roasted, I'm taking it out of the pan and putting it onto a cutting board and let it sit there for maybe 1 or 2 minutes. You can see how much fat comes from the skin, so there's definitely enough liquid in the pan that your duck doesn't burn. I'm removing most of the fat. I leave maybe 1 tablespoon behind. And the heat is medium heat. Is a medium heat on the stove now. So I'm adding all of the vegetables and also the orange peel. I'm stirring it. And then I'm just gonna let it sit in the pan for a while. Shaking does also help. You don't have to stir it. It depends on how huge and manageable your wok pan is. Once the meat is rested a bit, I'm cutting it into about 1 centimeter or 1.5 centimeter slices. The thinner you cut the slices, the faster it will cook later on. You can see that the breast is fairly raw inside. That will go away in just a few minutes. Once in a while, I'm stirring the vegetables and I'm going to let it cook for about 5 or 6 minutes on the stove, depending on how hot your stove and the pan is. There is always a difference between, for example, gas stoves or the electronic ones that I'm using. Just have an eye on it and stir occasionally. After that, it's time to add back the duck into the pan. All of the slices go in there, and then I'm stirring thoroughly to have the vegetables mixed with the duck. Stir or shake the pan occasionally, but let it sit there and heat through for the most part. Once the duck is not pink anymore, it's time to add the oyster sauce. Be very careful with using salt in this recipe, since the oyster sauce is quite salty already. Definitely have a tiny bit of the dish to taste first before you add any salt. My husband and I are not eating very salty, so I don't need to add any more salt to the dish. I'm mixing in the oyster sauce very thoroughly. I want every little piece in the pan be covered and coated by the sauce. Once the sauce is evenly distributed in the pan, I'm going to let it sit and cook for another 2 or 3 minutes. Meanwhile, I'm adding a little bit of pepper, but that is not in the recipe. That's just because my husband and I like a little bit of pepper in our dishes. And then the cooking is already done, and it's time to distribute the lovely dish into our bowls. And I'm going to put some sesame seeds on top, the ones that I've roasted. And that's the dish. I hope you enjoyed, and maybe you try this recipe. It's very, very yummy. It's easy to make, quickly to cook. And maybe you want to let me know if you tried it, how you liked it. I'm going to see you very soon on the next video. Enjoy, and thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.